Psychology facts. Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir Putin demonstrates the features of the pragmatic leader, often making decisions based on cold calculation, not emotions. For example, in 2014, the annexation of Crimea was carefully planned, taking into account geopolitical benefits. His tendency to long pauses in a conversation creates psychological pressure on the interlocutors, forcing them to reveal more information. This was noted by world leaders, for example, during negotiations with Angela Merkel in 2007. Putin has a high emotional endurance, rarely showing anger or irritation in public. Even in the 2008 crisis, he remained calm at international summits. He demonstrates the features of the introvert, preferring a narrow circle of proxies with wide social contacts. Since the 1990s, his closest encirclement includes loyal associates, such as Igor Sechin. His public image is carefully built around masculinity, which emphasizes his tendency to demonstrate power. Photos from hunting or riding in 2009-2010 actively advanced in the media. Putin shows the features of sociopath, such as low empathy. This is noticeable in his reaction to the tragedy, for example, a restrained comment on the death of the Kursk submarine in 2000. His behavior indicates a deep sense of the mission associated with nationalism and the restoration of the greatness of Russia. The 2007 speech in Munich emphasized his desire for a multipolar world with strong Russia. He masterfully uses manipulative techniques, such as gaslighting, to control the political narrative. In 2022, he denied plans for the invasion of Ukraine, despite the obvious preparations. Putin has an exceptional memory that allows him to keep in his head a lot of details about people and events. In 2018, at a press conference, he accurately quoted data from many years ago. His tendency to risk manifests itself in unexpected political steps, which often find opponents by surprise. The sudden recognition of the DPR and LPR in 2022 shocked the West. He experiences a deep distrust of the West, which forms his foreign policy decisions. This has been traced since 2004 after the Orange Revolution in Ukraine. Putin demonstrates the features of narcissism, especially in the desire to create a personality cult. Placities and portraits with its image have been widely spread in Russia since the 2000s. His love for animals, especially dogs, can be a psychological tool for softening the image. In 2007, he used his dog at a meeting with Merkel, knowing about her fear. He rarely shows vulnerability, which makes his perception in society almost superhuman. Even during personal crises, as a divorce in 2013, he retained an impenetrable image. His communication style often includes hidden threats veiled in diplomatic phrases. In 2014, he hinted at the nuclear potential of Russia in response to the sanctions of the West. He has the ability to quickly adapt to changing circumstances, which makes him unpredictable. In 2020, he quickly adjusted the policy in response to the pandemic of the COVID-19. Putin is prone to long-term planning, which is manifested in his strategic approach to power. Constitutional changes in 2020 provided him with the opportunity to remain in power until 2036. His public performances are carefully verified to cause an emotional response from the audience. The 2014 question about the Crimea was built on the patriotic feelings of Russians. He avoids direct conflicts with equal strength, preferring asymmetric methods of struggle. Support for proxial in Syria since 2015 is an example of this approach. Putin demonstrates the features of the perfectionist, especially in control of his image. His performances and photo shoots, as in 2018 in the elections, are carefully directed. His childhood injuries, including humiliation, could form his tough character. Growing up in the post-war Leningrad in the 1950s, Putin came across street conflicts which tempered him. He rarely expresses regret or recognizes errors, which indicates high self-confidence. For example, in 2000, he did not apologize for the Kursk tragedy, shifting the blame for circumstances. Putin uses silence as a tool of power, forcing others to feel uncertain. Long pauses in negotiations with George Bush in 2001 were confused by interlocutors. His love of sports, especially judo, reflects the desire for discipline and control. Since the 1960s, he has been engaged in judo, which emphasizes his philosophy of strength and self-control. He has the ability to read people, which helps him manipulate their weaknesses. In 2007, he used the fear of Angela Merkel in front of the dogs at the meeting. Putin is inclined to isolation, which enhances his paranoid features against betrayal. Since the 2010s, he has reduced the circle of communication, trusting only trusted persons. Its decisions are often based on intuition, supported by a deep analysis. In 2014, the decision on the annexation of Crimea combined intuition and geopolitical calculation. He avoids impulsive actions, preferring a balanced approach even in crises. In 2008, during the war in Georgia, he acted in stages, avoiding escalation. Putin demonstrates high resistance to stress, which allows him to maintain composure in difficult situations. In 2020, he calmly led the country during the pandemic. Its management style includes micro-study in key issues, which indicates a distrust of subordinates. In 2018, he personally controlled preparations for the World Cup. He uses historical narratives to enhance his influence on public consciousness. The speeches of the Great Patriotic War since the 2000s emphasize the continuity of Russia. Putin has a gift of belief, especially in creating an image of a besieged fortress. In 2014, he convinced the Russians of the threat of the West after sanctions. His tendency to secrecy enhances the aura of mystery around his personality. His whereabouts in 2020 during the pandemic was often hidden. He rarely shows sincere emotions, which makes his behavior difficult to predictable. Even in 2013, divorce with his wife was represented unemotional. Putin uses fear as a control tool, but does it subtly and unobtrusively. The arrest of the opposition, as Navalny in 2021, sends a signal without direct threats. He demonstrates high loyalty to those who prove their devotion, but ruthless to the traitors. In the 2000s, he promoted loyal security forces, but quickly eliminated the apostates. Putin is inclined to reflection, but rarely shares his internal experiences. His memoirs and interviews, as in 2000, are extremely restrained in personal details. His behavior indicates a deep faith in his own right, bordering the messianism. In 2022, he justified the actions in Ukraine with a historical mission. He masterfully uses the media to form his image as a strong leader. TV shows since the 2000s, like A Straight Line, create an image of a caring leader. Putin avoids direct contact with the opposition, preferring to discredit it indirectly. In 2021, Navalny was declared an extremist through controlled media. His love of rituals and traditions reflects the desire for stability. The annual victory parades since the 2000s emphasize its commitment to national traditions. He demonstrates the features of asceticism, avoiding excesses in his personal life. In an interview with 2000, he mentioned a modest lifestyle, avoiding ostentatious luxury. Putin has the ability to quickly switch between roles, from a diplomat to a military leader. In 2014, he combined peace negotiations with the leadership of a military operation in the Crimea. His public gestures, such as handshakes, are often designed to demonstrate dominance. In 2001, his strong handshake with Bush was noticed as a gesture of power. He rarely allows himself to relax, which indicates a high level of self-control. Even on vacation in the 2010s, he was shown in active classes, and not in passive relaxation. Putin uses nostalgia for the USSR to strengthen his popularity. In the speeches of the 2000s, he often referred to Soviet achievements, causing pride in the older generation. He has the gift of convincing people of their infallibility, even with obvious mistakes. After the 2008 crisis, he transferred guilty to the West, retaining support. Putin demonstrates the features of revenge, especially in relation to those who publicly criticize him. The arrest of Khodorkovsky in 2003 was a response to his political activity. His communication style includes elements of paternalism, imagining himself as a father of a nation. In the direct line since 2001, he answers questions from citizens as a caring leader. He rarely uses a straight lie, preferring a half-truth for manipulation. In 2022, he called the invasion of Ukraine a special operation, avoiding the term war. Putin has a high ability to self-reflection, but rarely changes his beliefs. In 2018, he recognized difficulties, but insisted on the correct course. His behavior in negotiations often includes elements of theatricality to enhance the effect. In 2007, the sharp Munich speech was designed for international resonance. Putin demonstrates a tendency to collect loyalty, not friendship. His environment since the 1990s consists of devoted associates, not close friends. His love of history reflects the desire to position himself as part of the great heritage. In 2021, he compared himself to Peter I, emphasizing the historical mission. He uses the rhetoric of enemies to rally society around his figure. In 2014, he accused the West of the threat of Russia, strengthening patriotism. Its tendency to control is manifested even in small things. In 2018, he personally approved the details of ceremonies at international events. He has the gift of turning criticism into his favor, turning the narrative. In 2020, he turned charges of corruption into the image of the victim of the Western campaign. Putin demonstrates stoic features, taking difficulties as an inevitable part of life. In 2020, he calmly reacted to the pandemic challenges without showing panic. His behavior indicates a deep distrust of spontaneous manifestations of loyalty. In the 2010s, he checked new allies through long tests of devotion. He uses symbolism to emphasize strength. Flight with Cranes in 2012 was called upon to show his connection with nature and leadership. Putin rarely changes his opinion, which indicates stubbornness as a character trait. In 2014, he insisted on his position in the Crimea, despite international criticism. Its tendency to isolation enhances its dependence on the narrow circle of advisors. Since the 2000s, he trusts only trusted persons, such as Sergei Shoigu. Putin demonstrates the ability to revenge on long-term revenge, waiting for the right moment. The arrest of Khodorkovsky in 2003 followed years after his criticism. His public performances often contain hidden messages for different audiences. In 2022, we were talking about this special operation, at the same time patriotic and threatening the West. He avoids direct confrontation, preferring to work through intermediaries. Since 2015, Russia acted through local forces in Syria, minimizing a direct part. Putin has the gift of convincing people that his actions are inevitable. In 2014, he presented the annexation of Crimea as a forced step to protect Russians. His behavior indicates a deep faith in fate and historical mission. In 2021, he referred to the historical purpose of Russia in an article about Ukraine. He uses physical activity as a way of maintaining mental stability. In the 2010s, his judo classes and swimming were widely covered in the media. Putin rarely expresses gratitude publicly, which emphasizes his restraint. Even in 2018, he boldly thanked for support in the elections. His tendency to secrecy makes his personal life a mystery. Since 2013, after the divorce, his personal relations are almost not discussed publicly. He demonstrates the features of the manipulator, skillfully playing on the emotions of the masses. In 2020, he used a pandemic to strengthen the image of the defender of the nation. Putin has the ability to remain calm even in international pressure. In 2014, he calmly reacted to the sanctions of the West. His control style includes elements of randomness to keep his subordinates. Sudden permutations in the government in 2020 caused uncertainty. He rarely reveals his true intentions. In 2022, Ukrainian plans were hidden until the last moment. Putin uses religious images to strengthen his legitimacy. In 2019, he publicly supported the Russian Orthodox Church, positioning himself as a defender of faith. His behavior indicates a deep hostility towards chaos and uncertainty. In the 2000s, he stabilized the economy, eliminating the post-crisis chaos of the 1990s. He masterfully uses fear of external threats to consolidate power. In 2014, the rhetoric of the Western threat rallied Russians. His tendency to risk often balances on the verge of rational and reckless. The decision on the invasion of Ukraine in 2022 caused disputes about its priesthood. He avoids public apologies that he emphasizes his confidence in his actions. In 2000, he did not apologize for the Kursk tragedy, shifting guilty. Putin has the gift of finding weaknesses in his opponents. In 2007, he used the phobia Merkel in front of dogs for psychological pressure. His behavior indicates a deep faith in the hierarchy and order. Since the 2000s, he built a vertical of power, emphasizing the importance of subordination. Putin demonstrates the ability to quickly make decisions in critical situations. In 2008, he quickly responded to a conflict in Georgia. He masterfully uses propaganda to create the image of an infallible leader. Since the 2000s, the direct line has formed the image of a caring and strong ruler. Putin rarely shows sympathy publicly, which enhances his image of an iron person. In 2020, his reaction to the pandemic was restrained and business. His behavior indicates a deep faith due to the will of circumstances. In 2018, he insisted that Russia would overcome sanctions by the power of the spirit. He uses the rhetoric of the victim to justify his actions in the international arena. In 2022, he accused the West of provoking the conflict in Ukraine. Putin demonstrates the features of a charismatic leader who can inspire loyalty. His speeches in 2014 inspired patriotism among millions of Russians. His tendency to minimalism in his personal life contrasts with his political ambitiousness. In the 2000s, he lived modestly, but strove for global influence. Putin has the ability to turn his weaknesses into strengths in the eyes of the public. In 2020, he addressed age questions to the image of an experienced leader. His behavior indicates a deep conviction that he is indispensable for Russia. In 2020, constitutional changes secured his power until 2036. Thanks for watching. What do you think about Putin? Share your opinion in the comments.